Hey, this is Dr. Roy Sheneman joining you once again here with Tier 1 Coaching and Training, and I wanted to come with you today and talk a little bit more about getting a job, some of the key things we can do to help ourselves prepare and to put our very best foot forward as we interview for a new job. So here we go. Rule number one that I want to talk about today. Remember, getting the interview is only part of the process. It is not the entire process. It's very, very important. Very important. You must do well in the interview. But what seasoned interviewers know is anybody can act a part for one interview. The key is trying to figure out if this is really how the interviewee is, or if perhaps that person is just acting the part for that one day to get the job and will tell you anything they want to hear in order to hopefully get a job offer and get on down the road. For the interviewer, their role is to try to figure out a way to do the very best they can and to very best to get to know you and to get to know you as a candidate and to see if you're going to be a really good team member for them at their company, in their organization, with their department, working on their projects with the team that currently exists. So it's very, very important. So there's some things that you should understand. So here we go. Tip number one, prepare. It's that simple. Prepare. What does that mean? Well, it means what we talked about before. Make sure you've done some research on the company. Go to their company website. Find out about the products and services they offer. Look for headlines. Look for things that have come out from the media. Perhaps they had some big deals that made the national or local media that can be very important for you to be able to recognize, be able to discuss with them during the interview. Look for any kind of their major competitors. Who is this company in competition with? Is it local competition? Is it international or national competition? Who are they? Who is their competitor? Who do they consider to be their competitor? You can find a lot of that information on the websites and certainly by doing research in the industry itself with which this company is a part. So you want to make sure you're doing some really, really good research. Lastly, as far as the research go, identify who the key players are in the organization. For example, you should know walking in the door who the CEO is. You should know who members of the C-suite are, the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, the chief technology officer, whoever it is that marks the leadership of that company. You need to know who those people are, at least their names, so that during the interview, you can reference them if necessary. Often these folks will be in the media. They will have been interviewed at some point by somebody, whether that be a major magazine, such as like Inc. or Time or whatever. They can be in the media locally, nationally, internationally. And if they are, you're going to find that typically on their websites and in perhaps their Facebook page or even their Twitter accounts. Those are things that you need to be researching and looking at as extensively as you can prior to heading into the interview. Second, be ready for the unexpected. The seasoned interviewer knows that literally anybody can walk in the door at any time and do well on an interview. It's really easy to hold it together for an hour. So if they're really serious about you, and this is depending on the level the position is within the company, they might throw a curveball at you to see how you will react. So what could that mean? Well, it could mean something as simple as having a second or a third or even a team of interviewers there ready to meet you and to talk to you about the position for which you're applying. That could be one thing they could do. Tip to that, here's what I tell you. When you walk in the door of the organization, the interview starts. Don't wait until you're in the room with somebody because you do not know how this is set up. Often, a common tip that an interviewer will do, a trick, so to speak, is they will actually have their secretary or an assistant of some sort meet you first. And that assistant might take you the long way to the meeting room. That assistant might just strike up a conversation with you. All behind the scenes, unbeknownst to you, it's unstructured, and they're just seeing how you interact with them. So when you walk in the door, you need to be kind and courteous and thoughtful for everybody that you run in contact with there, with that organization. Because you never know who might be asked by the interviewer, what was he like? What was she like? Were they rude? Were they impatient when you took the long way to the room? Whatever it might have been. When you offered them a drink of water, did they take it? Or did they seem hurt and frustrated that you were talking to them and not somebody else in those initial moments? So you want to make sure you be ready for the unexpected. Some interviews may not take place in a conference room or in an office. Often they will take place on walks. They'll take you on a walk around the company, introduce you to some folks along the way, kind of show you the lay of the land, so to speak. This is an opportunity to get you out of your comfort zone and to try to see how you will react when you have all these other variables kind of thrown at you in a very informal way. Again, it's all about trying to identify, are you a good match for this company? That's what they're trying to do. Other interviews might take place over dinner, lunch, some meal somewhere. They just want to, again, it's an opportunity to see you out of your element and get a feel for how you are and how you'll do with them as representing. And the last thing, and this is one that's kind of rare, but it could occur, depending if they happen to know something about you. Perhaps you revealed that you are, in your resume, for example, that you are very competitive and that you like competitive sports. It's not unheard of for them to invite you to work out with them. It's unusual, but it is not completely unheard of. So I would encourage you, be ready for these things. You never know. These are odd, but the whole idea is to get you in an uncomfortable setting and hopefully get a feel for who you are at a very deep level, as opposed to just the act that you're putting on for the initial interview, or at least that's how it may be perceived. Third tip, tell as complete a story about yourself as possible. Obviously, your resume is going to tell a story. If you've done that well, that will help you, that gets you the interview, that gets you that initial phone call at least. So that's good. But you need to make sure that you've taken time to consider who you're going to ask to give you a reference. Who's that going to be? Obviously, your boss, a former supervisor or manager can tell a really good story about you as a follower within an organization. That's great. That's key. You got to have those guys. But consider having people who you supervise, if you, in fact, you're in that kind of a role, talk about you. Who are some people that you have managed along the way? They can be a tremendous resource for you. Also, think about coworkers, people who really have no skin in the game, who truly have nothing to benefit from your getting a new job. But those coworkers can often tell you, say some amazing things for you that can get you noticed beyond just what's on the piece of paper of your resume and or what your boss might say. So think about who these people are. Try to get at all levels of your work experience. People who supervised you, people you supervised, and people who were coworkers. The more varied the experiences, think about people who you worked with years ago. Now, obviously, the more recent is going to carry more weight, but it's not unheard of for you to call us and say, you know what, I used to work over here in this other kind of industry, particularly if you're trying to jump back into that industry. Say, for example, that you used to be in a service industry and then you went into manufacturing for some reason. And now you're saying, I want to get back into the service industry. Well, it'd be useful for you to have people in the manufacturing environment talking about you, but then also to be able to point them to a former manager, director, or coworker, or somebody subordinate who might be able to speak to you at that level as well. So think about that. Make sure you have that all wrapped up and you have people that can tell the most complete story that they can. They can talk to you. They need to be able to talk to you about not only how you are at work, but what kind of person are you? You know, how do you handle stress? Things like that. These are folks who know you well, have seen you in different situations, and it can be very, very, very helpful for you to do that. So make sure you've done that. It's fourth. Absolutely, when you walk in the door, you need to be yourself. Now, obviously, you're going to walk in, you're going to be dressed nicely, gentlemen, you're going to be wearing a tie, probably a jacket, depending on the organization. Ladies, you're going to be dressed very, very, very nicely as well. Whether you're wearing a suit or perhaps even a dress, whatever you feel is appropriate for that organization, that's what you need to be wearing. But here's the thing. When you go in, make sure you are yourself. Don't present yourself as something you're not. So, for example, I've seen this happen before. Somebody really wants the job, and in the job description it says you must be a power user in Excel with the Excel program. So they say, yeah, I'm a power user. Okay, well, what does that really mean? Does that mean you know how to turn it on? Often, that's literally what they mean. Well, yeah, I'm a power user. Look, I can turn it on. No, they're talking about can you use complex formulas to do different tasks within the financial realm of the organization. But the bottom line is this. If you don't have really strong skills in a certain area, own it. It's okay. But whatever you do, be honest about what you do have. So if you don't have something, talk about how you're pursuing it. Talk about what your goals are to overcome that limitation in your skill set, if in fact it is a limitation. All these things are really, really important, but you've got to be yourself. You can't go into this thing and lie. The last thing you ever want to do in a resume and or in an interview is lie, because if you're caught, you will be fired. It's pretty much that simple, most organizations, and nobody wants that to happen. So whatever you do, be honest, tell them exactly who you are, be yourself. If you like to tell jokes, tell jokes. Just make sure that they're appropriate for the setting and the personnel that are there. You certainly don't want to say something off color or something particularly racy if you don't know these people. So if it's just a nice sense of humor, I'm having a great time, relaxing with people, that's fine. But again, whatever you do, you make sure that you're zoned into the interview and that you never give the appearance that you are not being yourself and or you are not on key with what's being asked, and it's appropriate. So if they're asking you a serious question, it's not the time to pop a particular joke along the way. So be yourself. And then lastly, and here's something that's really, really important. Relax. Seriously, you got to relax. You're going to be wound up. You're going to be very nervous. That's normal. True for everybody. I promise you, every time I've ever interviewed myself, I have been extremely nervous. So what do you do to overcome that? There's a few key things you can do. Number one, this is kind of a rule as far as I'm concerned, at least it's a rule for me, and that is this. If you are on time, you are late. Let me say that again. If you are on time, you are late. You need to always, always, always be early. At least 15 minutes. I recommend 30, to be quite frank with you. Even if that means 30 minutes you're sitting in the parking lot waiting to walk in the door. It doesn't matter. The last thing you want to do is feel rushed because traffic held you up somewhere or because you had a flat tire or whatever could have occurred along the way. The bottom line is this: always, always, always be early. If you're on time, you're late. It's that simple. Secondly, what that's going to allow you to do, if you are early, enter the building. When you enter the building, first thing I would do is I would ask somebody, where's the restroom? Obviously, if you have needs there, go ahead and take care of them. But the bottom line is this: even if you don't, go in there and just relax. Wash your hands. Do what you need to do just to kind of relax. It's a nice place to go where you can have a little bit of alone time and just sort of do whatever it is you do to relax and make sure that you've got everything together. Your shirt's tucked in, your tie is straight, those sorts of things. That your appearance is what you need it to be at that moment. That's an opportunity, ladies, to touch up your makeup if necessary. And whatever else might have to happen, that's what you do at that time. Make sure your hair's in place. All these kinds of things you want to that will help you feel relaxed and help you feel put together. Also, if you're carrying documents with you, extra resumes, which I would certainly recommend that you have on hand, business cards, if perhaps that's appropriate. Whatever it is you might have with you, you want to have those pre-positioned so that when the time comes, you're handing them out as opposed to digging in your pockets or in your briefcase or whatever it is might be that you have with you. That also means whatever you take in, keep it limited. I recommend just having a folio type thing where you stick the stuff in there. It's easy to get to. Always, always, always take a pen with you and some paper. Have that in there because there could be something that they ask you. For example, they might say, can you show me something? Let's say that there was a project you worked on. Can you show me how you approach that project? Sure, I have some notes and whatever to show you. You write that down so you don't forget what you need to do. And if nothing else, writing down the names of the people that are interviewing you is absolutely vital. Because when this is all said and done and you walk out the door after you've shaken hands with everybody and you thank them for their opportunity to compete for this job and you thank them for making time to interview you, as you're walking out the door, you ought to be thinking, I need to send a thank you note. And I want you to go home and I want you to pull out a card, a simple thank you card, and I want you to write them a simple 2-line note. Thank you so much for the opportunity to compete for this job. I really enjoy this company and look forward to hearing from you soon as you make your decision on whether or not to invite me into your organization. That's simple. Sign it, mail it, be done with it. I'm telling you, that is one thing that is rarely used now by people who interview for jobs. and it will help you stand out. Will it get you the job in and of itself? No. But it will help you stand out, and it's one more thing that differentiates you from everybody else that walks in the door. And remember, you don't know who you're competing against. You might be competing against 300 applicants. You might be competing against 5 people who were interviewed. You might be the only person interviewed right now, just due to circumstances and timing, things like that. That happens. So the more you can stand out, and the more they can say, okay, this person actually thought enough to send me a note, a handwritten note, thanking me for this opportunity. That's awesome. So the question is, well, my handwriting sucks. Excuse me for the language there. My handwriting's terrible. So what do? Well, here's what you do. If necessary, ask somebody else to actually write it for you. Perhaps your spouse has better handwriting. Maybe even your child, your teenage child, might have better handwriting than you. That's fine. And it's okay if you type the note. That's fine too. The point is you're taking the time to give them this note. That's the main point here of the whole drill. So make sure you've done that. So do your work up front. Research that company. Know them well when you walk in the door. You ought to have, I would encourage you to even have a couple questions on hand, maybe 3 to 5 questions about that company, about their product line, about what, the service industry they're in, or the manufacturing environment, whatever it is. But you have some questions. You're demonstrating that you took the time to research things ahead of time, and you're demonstrating your interest in their company. So make sure you're doing that. Be ready for the unexpected. They may say, hey, let's go for a walk. I want to walk the floor and show you what we have to offer in this company. That's awesome. Great opportunity. Make sure you take advantage of that and you're prepared. Be yourself. Be yourself. Just let them get to know you at as deep a level as possible, as is appropriate, given the questions that they ask you. Be ready to tell as complete a story as possible. Obviously, your resume is going to help. That's awesome. That gets you in the door. But you want to have people lined up who you know are going to give you a really good review along the way. Former bosses, former managers, former coworkers, and former people that you may have managed if, in fact, you came from a supervisory background. Those types of things. Talk about different industries you've worked in and kind of how, if you did switch industries, if you went from a service industry to a manufacturing or something like that, you need to be able to explain why did you do that. And then especially if you're trying to go back to the service industry or vice versa. In any case, you need to be ready for that. Be yourself and relax. If you're on time, you're late. You need to be early. You need to go and get yourself caught up. Go to the bathroom just for a moment to check your hair, make sure everything's lined up right. You have all the stuff you have brought with you, business cards, extra resumes, anything else you may have brought with you for the interview. You want to have that ready and available and able to use. Well, I hope this is helpful. And by all means, please write me. Let me know what your thoughts are and your comments are on these tips here. So this is Interviews Made Easy, Tier 1 Coaching and Training. I am Dr. Roy Sheneman. I thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great afternoon, and look forward to seeing you again real soon online. Thanks. Bye-bye.